Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite mythology retellings. So I'm sure there's more, but I collected these off my bookshelves after trying to think about this for a couple of weeks. I just decided to stop thinking about it and film, so here we are. I have recently, I would say as of this past year, realized that mythology retellings are some of my favorite books. So I wanted to talk about some of those books today and just share with you what my favorites are, and I would love for you guys to also share some recommendations down below because I want to try to read more of these kinds of things in the future. So I want to build some books in my TBR to do that. Let's talk about the things that I've loved. Most of these are Greek mythology, but I want to try to include other mythologies going into the future because I feel like I want to expand on what I already know and build some knowledge about other mythologies that maybe I haven't really read much or didn't even know about. Let's talk about what I have read. I have loved Song of Achilles. I feel like everybody has read this by now, but Madeline Miller's Song of Achilles is still one of my absolute favorite things. I really want to reread this sometime just to see if it gives me the same feelings again, because this book made me sob. I tend to get over emotional when I read anyway, but I'm always overly attached to fictional characters, but I didn't expect this book to hit as hard as it did because I am familiar with the story of the Iliad. I knew what was going to happen and it still broke me. This is a story about Patroclus and Achilles and their friendship as children and growing up and their love, and it's beautiful. The writing is so gorgeous in this, and just the atmosphere that she built for them and the relationship they had, and I loved it to pieces, and this still remains maybe one of my all-time favorite mythology retellings. I also loved A Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes. This is a retelling of the Trojan War as well, but this one focuses on the stories of the women who lived through it. And I thought this was so well done. I really want to read something else by Natalie Haynes. I know she has other books out, so I'm going to try to find something and read it by her because this was so well done. This story, like I said, it focuses on the women, so it's multiple perspectives, and so it does hop around a lot. So if you have a hard time with multiple perspectives where you're not staying with any one character for the whole story, then this might frustrate you. But I thought it was gorgeous, and you do go back and forth, so you'll come back to some characters multiple times, but sometimes it's just once. So it's almost like a collection of short stories of women experiencing the events of the Trojan War and how it affected them and what happened to them after and that sort of thing. But it's very well done and just gorgeous. Also by Madeline Miller, but not specifically focused on the Trojan War or any of that, although it does a little bit cover the Odyssey, is Circe by Madeline Miller. I just read this, and so it's the freshest in my mind, but I loved this so much. This book solidified for me that Madeline Miller is an author. I will read absolutely anything this woman writes forever. I don't even care. She could write me a grocery list and I'd probably be riveted. So this story focuses on Circe, who, if you've read the Odyssey, you might remember her as being a witch who lives on the island of Aiaia or something like that. I can never remember how to pronounce it. And so you meet her there, and she hypnotizes Odysseus and makes all his men into pigs, and then they stay on the island for many, many years. And she's kind of cast as the villain. Then that's all you get from her. This novel gives her not just a backstory, but it humanizes her in a way that just makes her into such a fascinating figure in mythology. She is a goddess, so she's thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, and so you're following her from her birth to her death. And it's fascinating how Madeline Miller has woven all of these mythologies together. So like you're meeting, this is kind of a who's who in Greek mythology, because you're meeting so many different mythological characters, and seeing how they relate to Circe is absolutely fascinating. I loved it. I loved that she didn't like have to alter anything for this to work. Everything is still like mythologically accurate. Like it's not historical fiction or anything, but like the mythology stays true to what it always was, which I thought was just so interesting that she could tie all of these things in with Circe. So like she's there when Prometheus is punished and she tries to help him, and that makes a huge impact on her whole life. And like she meets Daedalus and Icarus. She's there when, or she meets Scylla, and I'm not gonna like spoil anything, but like all of these mythologies come together in her story, and it's just brilliant. For something different, for Norse mythology, if you just want straight Norse mythology, I cannot recommend enough that you check out Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. I couldn't find it on my shelves. I don't know where I stuck it, but I'll put a picture, because this book is great. This is a straight, just like retelling of Norse mythology, and he does it in a way that it almost feels like, I want to listen to this on audiobook at some point, because it feels like it's meant to be done orally, as all mythology was originally told, because like people didn't write things down back then. It was all told through stories. I could almost in my head while I was reading this hear Lagertha from the Vikings, if you've seen that. I could hear her voice telling the stories in my head, and I just thought, like, this is so good. So, loved that. Neil Gaiman is great. Everything he writes is awesome. But Norse mythology, I think, is a great introduction. And then, once you've read that and you have a little familiarity, or honestly, even if all you've seen is Thor from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you'll enjoy The Witch's Heart by Genevieve Gornichek. This is the story of Angrboda, who is the witch that Loki marries, and she has his children. And this I read like 2 years ago, but I still think about it sometimes because it was just so good. This story, again, follows her whole life, and like, so you're getting thousands of years of her life in a story, her children's lives, and like who they grow up to become. It's just really well done. The voices in this, the way the characters talk, I think is just so great. Like, The Vikings is one of my favorite TV shows. So is The Last Kingdom, which is also a lot of Viking stuff happening. So like the way they talk in those shows and the way the characters speak in this feels so similar that I have to imagine that this is just how people in that time would have spoken to each other. It's just how they talk. But I found it to be really interesting. Like, as I was reading this, I kept thinking, like, I can kind of hear, like, I could imagine Lagertha and Ragnar talking to each other, and it would sound like this. Like, I just thought it was really great. I love this book so much, and I want to see if I can find anything else by Genevieve Gornichek, because I keep meaning to look up and see if she's written anything else. Who knows? Maybe she has, and I'm just oblivious. The last book I'm going to talk about, I would say isn't necessarily a retelling in any way, but it's retelling adjacent. And I just wanted to give it a shout out because, like, I haven't mentioned it in a long while. And so if you're new here, this will be new to you. If you've been around for a while, you won't be surprised. But I'm going to talk about Lovely War by Julie Berry. I read this, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like my favorite book of the year when I read it. And this is a story about World War I, but it's told through the perspectives of the Greek pantheon as they work their will upon the humans and make them do things or try to like manipulate their lives in certain ways. And I just found that so great. Like, I want every story to be told by the gods and like how they are manipulating us petty, silly humans into doing things, because I just thought it was really a great way to tell the story, just to give it some kind of a different spin. But also it gave it this like different emotional resonance that I was not expecting from reading this. Like, the story itself about the characters who are living through World War I was already emotional enough, but then you have these emotions coming from the gods and like how they are reacting to each other and to the people they're manipulating. Like, it was just so good. Like, the way this is told is brilliant, and this is always going to be a favorite book of mine, and I want more things like this. So those are my favorites. I am aware of some other books. Like, I know a lot of people have recommended I pick up Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. So I'm definitely going to add that to my TBR because I haven't done it yet. I don't own it. But like, I've heard so many people recommend it that I definitely want to read that. But if you know of any other mythology retellings, I would love to know. I do own a few Jewish mythology books too that I want to add in, but I haven't read them yet, so I can't recommend anything. So like, I own The Way Back by Gabrielle Savitt, which I know is Jewish mythology, but I haven't read that. So I also have The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid, which is Jewish mythology. So like, I do have some other things on my shelves. I just haven't gotten to them yet. So I didn't want to really like talk about them too much in this video since I can't really recommend any of them since I don't know what they are. I haven't read them. But yeah, if you guys know any other mythology retellings that you think I would love, let me know about it down below in the comments and I will build a TBR. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Happy reading. Bye!